Big Scary back here again. Tonight we're gonna cover one of a little bit less serious topics than we have in the last couple episodes. We're back to our bread and butter of MMA. So the last two events have been Fight Night, Woodley versus Burns, and then UFC 250. So let's cover Fight Night. Woodley versus Burns. So let's see, the first fight of the evening was Chris Gutierrez against Vince Morales. And Gutierrez came out and just chopped him down immediately. And by the second round, second round, it was a leg kick finish. Looked good. It's getting you're starting to see more and more leg kick finishes. I think this was second event in a row. It's like those calf kick. I mean, because people had kicked the legs before, but it's like the calf kick. It's like people don't really know how to check it properly, and it really does a lot of damage. So it was a nice win for Gutierrez. Our second fight of the evening was Louis Smolka against Casey Kennedy. Casey came out, looked good on the feet, and when the fight went to the ground, he was able to get a nice guillotine choke. A nice win against a veteran. Our next fight of the evening was Tim Elliott versus Brandon Royval. And if you've seen Tim Elliott fight before, he came out the same way, herky-jerky, unorthodox style, nice pace. He gave Mighty Mouse trouble. Royval did decent, and then when the fight went to the ground, he was able to get a nice slick arm triangle choke. So that was a nice win for Royval. Our next fight of the evening was Jamel Hill against Cletus and Abreu. Jamel Hill looked pretty good standing, and then was able to land a nice knee to the body to finish the fight. Nice win for Hill. Our next fight of the evening was Daniel Rodriguez against Gabe Green. And it was a pretty even, nice back and forth fight. But Rodriguez was just about one step ahead the whole time. Gabe Green would try to push the pace, but Rodriguez is a little better at this point in their careers. Nice win for Rodriguez. Our next fight of the evening was Katlyn Chookagian against Antonina Shachenko. And this was an interesting fight because Chookagian's last fight was against Antonina's sister, who's the champ, and she got beat pretty bad in that fight, and she was able to get some revenge because she completely dominated this fight. Not necessarily, she didn't dominate per se on the stand up, but she was able to take the fight where she wanted to take it, and so she dominated on the ground. So it was a nice little some good sweet revenge for Chookagian. So nice win. Our next fight of the evening was Mackenzie Dern, Hannah Seifers. This Mackenzie has had a lot of hype since she came into the UFC from her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience, and she was getting lit up on the feet, but once it went to the ground, she got a nice knee bar. So she definitely needs to work on her stand-up because it still looks pretty rudimentary. But still, always a nice win. Our next fight of the evening was Roosevelt Roberts against Brock Weaver. And Roberts looked good. Roberts looked good standing. Roberts looked good on the ground. He was a nice rear naked choke victory for Roberts. I can't wait to see more of him. Our next fight of the evening was Billen Quarantillo against Spike Carlisle. And Spike just came out like a madman, pushing the pace. At one point it was weird. At the end of the first round, it's like he thought the round was over. He starts like just casually walking away, and then Quarantillo landed a shot to the. I guess it actually landed on the side of his head, but it was almost the back of his head because his back was completely turned. But just goes to show you, protect yourself at all times. The ref says that, so probably should do that. But it was a Quarantillo was able to pull out a nice decision back and forth victory. That fight could have gone either way, but Quarantillo won. All right, our next fight of the evening, the co-main event, Blagoy Ivanov against Augusto Sakai. It was a back and forth fight. I mean, there was nothing super exciting about it, but Sakai was able to pull out the victory. So, I mean, a win is a win. Our main event of the evening was Tyron Woodley against Gilbert Burns. And I'm not sure if Woodley is done, but his last two fights against Usman and now Burns pretty much went the same way, and he got dominated. Gilbert Burns, I mean, just completely dominated from in every aspect of the fight. Just everything. I mean, probably almost. I mean, they opened up a nice cut on Woodley. Yeah. I mean, it's always a good win if you can beat Woodley, but at the same time, I'm not sure if Woodley's who he used to be anymore. So be interesting to see where they both go from here. But still, obviously, always a nice win on when you headline a card. All right, so that was the fight night. Let's see, our next event was UFC 250. Interestingly enough, that was also at the Apex Center, and in that, and I don't know if I'd mentioned that before, but the Apex Center is that's in Vegas. That's the UFC training center, and it's 5 feet smaller than a regulation or the normal UFC cage. And so, I mean, it makes people engage more. I mean, there's less room to run. So it probably, I mean, it looks like sometimes guys are unable to use the amount of movement they normally would. But I mean, as a fight fan, I'm always glad when guys engage more. So this, interestingly enough, this card opened up with Gilbert Burns' brother. Herbert Burns, he fought Evan Dunham. Evan Dunham, who coming off a 2-year layoff, and actually had there was a catchweight fight. I think it was like 150, and that's 5 pounds less than he normally fights at. And I don't know if it was a good decision to move down, or maybe it was a layoff, but I mean, Burns came out and just completely was dominated him, was able to get him to the ground and just rear naked choke pretty quick. So our next fight of the evening, Alonzo Menifield against Devin Clark. And Menifield has a lot of hype behind him, knocks most guys out, but Clark was able to get a nice workmanlike decision. Menifield started to gas toward the end of the fight, and Clark was just had more in his gas tank. His stand-up is still he needs to work on that, but I mean, hey, what can I say? He was able to pull out the victory. Our next fight of the evening was Jussier Formiga against Alex Perez. And another leg kick finish. More of those calf kicks. I mean, Formiga's he's a veteran. And he, I don't know, how many was it? I guess it says he landed 7, or what? No, 2. Oh, wait, no, okay, 15 leg kicks. And most of them were to the calf, and it just like the final shot wasn't even like a hard shot. He barely glanced the calf, and it was too much. Those calf kicks. Someone's gonna have to do something about this, because that weapon is. I mean, if you're good at it, it's guys are having a lot of trouble defending it. Our next fight of the evening was Charles Byrd Maki Patolo. Patolo. I think his last fight was at 170. This one was at 185, and I think he'd had to pull out because he couldn't make weight, or he was trying to make weight, and he like passed out, had to go to the hospital. But he definitely looked healthy at 185 and was able to just beat on Charles Byrd. Charles Byrd had come out strong at the beginning, but then he gassed pretty quickly, and so Patolo was able to finish the fight. Nice win. Our next fight of the evening was Cody Stamann against Brian Kelleher. And Cody Stamann is definitely got to give him a lot of credit for going through with this fight. His brother died, I think it's less than 2 weeks ago, and he still came out and he looked good. And this was a higher weight class than he normally fights at. He normally fights at 135 bantamweight, and this was at featherweight. And it's crazy because he didn't even look like the smaller man, and this was probably the best fight of his career so far. So it was a nice win under hard conditions for him. Our next fight of the evening was Ian Heinisch against Gerald Meerschaert. And Heinisch just came out quick and just completely blasted him out. Nice overhand and then ground and pound. So nice win for Heinisch. Our next fight of the evening was Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy, and versus Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper, who's only 20 years old, looks like he should be in like middle school or something, playing with Pokemon or something. But kid's good, but Alex Caceres just proved the veteran he was and just was much better on the feet. Hooper needs to work on that. The couple times he was able to get it to the ground, it was clear he had the advantage on the ground. He just couldn't get it there enough and keep it there. But, I mean, he's got a big future ahead of him. He's got a big future. Our next fight of the evening was Eddie Wineland, Sean O'Malley. Eddie Wineland is a veteran, and I mean, he's got some really good stand-up. So this was a nice competition for Sean O'Malley. A nice step up for him. We've seen him, and he's looked good against everyone he's fought so far, and look good in this one too. It was nice. He feinted with the uppercut and then landed the straight right, and that was all. Completely flatlined Eddie Wineland. Nobody does that to Eddie Wineland. So I don't know that he's definitely, Sean O'Malley's ready for another step up in competition. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about him fighting Cody Garbrandt. I don't know if he's ready for that per se, but he's definitely ready for a step up in competition. It's interesting. He's got like an interesting karate style, similar to Conor McGregor. Definitely, I was impressed. I was very impressed. Our next fight was Neil Magny against Anthony Roca Martin, and Magny came out and with the same. He always keeps a pace, steadily just landing shots. No matter where the fight goes, he's always slick and keeping a nice pace. So he did his thing and was able to pull out the victory. Our next fight of the evening was Aljamain Sterling against Corey Sandhagen. And Aljamain, I mean, just completely dominated him. Completely just came out and just took him, was able to put pressure on him, took him down, and got a nice rear naked choke. So it'll be interesting to see because this was supposed to be what happens in this and what happened in the Cody Garbrandt fight was going to show who was going to be the next in line for the title. So we'll see. Our next fight of the evening was Rafael Assunção against Cody Garbrandt. And Garbrandt looked good. Assunção looked good too, but Garbrandt just looked good. He'd changed up. I guess he's still training with Team Alpha Male, Uriah Faber's team, but sometimes you just, when it comes to a sport like MMA, you just need different looks and different coaches. And so he went to the East Coast and got some training with Mark Henry, and it showed. I mean, he looked nice in the stand-up. The first round went good, and then the second round with the seconds left, the 10-second warning bell goes, and it's like they were both there staring at each other, and it's like he came from his shoelaces and knocked out Assunção. It was a very, very nice knockout for Cody Garbrandt. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here, because it was between him and Aljamain, or the winner of the Aljamain Sterling fight, to see who gets the next title shot. So it'll be interesting to see which one out of them actually gets it. And our main event of the evening was Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer. Amanda Nunes just completely dominated Spencer. And you got to give it to Spencer. She is a tough girl because she took a beating. Took a beating against Cyborg too. I mean, you can't finish this girl. It possibly would have stopped the fight after the fourth round if I was her team. But, I mean, at the same time, I don't know. You almost don't want to take it from her like that. It's a pride thing with fighters. But she was getting beat pretty bad. But Nunes definitely, just more proof in the GOAT debate. And, she's got it right now. And so those were two really good cards. And in other UFC news, it seems like there's a lot of unrest. First, a couple weeks ago, after Henry Cejudo had won his fight against Dominic Cruz, he'd retired. Then we're hearing John Jones. There was talk about him fighting Francis Ngannou at heavyweight, but that fight fell through due to lack of John Jones said that they didn't want to pay him enough. And then seeing Masvidal saying the same type of stuff, that they don't want to pay him enough. And then today, Conor McGregor retired. So it's all looking. I think all of these things stem from a lack of pay on the UFC's part. And I mean, this all has to do with the UFC. I mean, the UFC needs a fighters union. All the major sporting leagues have fighters unions, and that's, I mean, like throughout life, unions help the workers. So I mean, this is, even though they get paid a lot more than at regular jobs, they're still workers. And I mean, so other jobs, usually the fighters unions or the other unions in the other major sports are able to get a collective bargaining agreement that usually calls for them to get somewhere close to 50%, 50-50 split with the owners. And the UFC, they had a court case a couple years ago, and it had come out that they're only paying around 20% of their earnings to the fighters, which is ridiculous. I mean, there's more things that you have to pay for as a fighter, so it's ridiculous that they're not getting paid much. I mean, obviously the top guys are making decent money, but the lower level guys are just not. And they need to. The UFC needs a fighters union. I mean, all fighters need one, but I mean, it's going to be kind of hard because there's so many different leagues to actually make it so it's all encompassing. So they need to needs to come up with a fighters union. It's just going to be hard because Dana White just runs the UFC with such an iron fist, and he's completely against the union. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here. So you can find us on YouTube at Trauma Television and at Facebook at Trauma Television, because this is Trauma Television production. You can find me on Facebook at Big Scary and at Twitter at Big Scary. And as Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.